Hi, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are having a great day today. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to School of Scarlet, the School of Unconditional Love. And if you're new or returning subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in. So, today we're going to be talking about the best relationship advice that no one has ever told you. And so, what are we going to be talking about? What does that mean? So, I'm coming at this relationship advice from the angle of non duality. So, after you've had an experience with non duality is really just seeing reality for what it is. It's nothing. There is nothing happening. Time and space is not real. And there is nothing happening in this moment. Everything exists here and now, and everything is also nothing. And you are not there. I am not here. There is no one. This is all just happening as it's happening. That's it. All there is awareness or consciousness. That's all that's happening. And you can see it as a big dream. You can see it as an imagination or a mind imagining things. You can see it a lot of different ways. You can see it as a total illusion, kind of like um, an illusion like a rainbow. And so all of these things will kind of shed light to what I'm talking about here. These are just all pointers of non duality and what it's really like. So if you can imagine that you are in a waking dream, so think of a nighttime dream. When you're in a nighttime dream, it really feels very real. Everything in that dream, it really feels real. You could be getting hurt physically and you can be feeling the pain. You could be having an emotional dream and you could be feeling that emotional pain. You could be feeling ecstatic, joy, many different things. You could be feeling lost, confused. You could be a whole nother person in a dream, and it really feels very real and almost even solid. Dreams can appear in a lot of different ways. And yet, when you wake up from a dream, no matter what happened in that dream, no matter how horrific or how amazing it was, when you wake up from it, you know it was just a dream and you can drop all of that in an instant. So, everything the character in the dream went through, all the suffering, whatever happened in that so called dream, you can just drop because it's just a dream. Well, the same thing happens when you have a non dual realization. You realize and you wake up from this life dream, and this life dream is very real. Everything feels solid, everything feels real, everything feels serious, everything feels like it's really happening, and there's real consequences to things, and there really is a lived life that starts and ends at this certain time. And so it's felt that way. But when you have a realization like a non dual realization, you realize that you wake up from a dream. It's just another dream. It's just like waking up from a nighttime dream, but you wake up from your daylight dream. And what happens is you realize how you did this all, how it's not really real, how it's just an illusion, and how you've been imagining this whole time. And so it can be quite unstable. You can feel a little bit unstable there for a moment, but as you do this realization, you realize how everything has always been this way and everything is this way. And you just go back to your life. It's not any different than before, other than your sense of self has now fallen away because you see how you really aren't that character you've been imagining. You really don't have all those friends and all those people around you. You've imagined those too, and they were just part of this dream. And yes, the dream goes on, but it is still just a dream. So you have the realization of it being a dream. And so everything in a way shifts and changes because you're no longer in relationship with all of these other people. Yes, they're other people. Yes, they have other personalities and preferences, but you see the underlying and the connecting tapestry throughout it all. That is the consciousness or awareness that is you. So you are them, they are you. Everything is in connection and relationship to you. So when you realize this, relationships really change and shift. You realize that you're only really in relationship with yourself in just different forms. So they might appear different. This might appear like a chair, And then I might go outside and there might be a tree. And then, yes, I'm married to a human being and I have a child. So, yes, these forms appear differently, yet they all have the consciousness or awareness running through them that is the same consciousness that I am. So, I am connected to all things, not just because I've had this realization, but because we are all this consciousness that is being shared. And this consciousness is yours, it's mine, it's the consciousness, the only consciousness you've ever experienced. And so this consciousness is not actually local. It feels very localized within your body. It feels like your consciousness is here in this body and you have never experienced it anywhere else, but that's actually not true. We do experience our consciousness in different ways. And the more you awaken to this, the more that your consciousness expands and it shows you the non-locality of the consciousness itself. And even people that have not had awakenings, people have that have just maybe had an accident or an operation and or a near death experience or something like that. They have experiences and reports of feeling non-localized, like they feel like they are floating on top of their body and viewing downwards, or maybe they've left their body. There's people that feel that they leave their bodies, and we actually leave our bodies every day when we go to sleep. It's not very unusual, really. And any time we can leave anything within our imagination, within our mind. When we're imagining, we're actually moving through things. It's almost like dreaming. And so that same dream, nighttime dream, imagination, and daytime dream, there's actually no difference between any of these things. They're all the same and they can be felt the same. It could feel very real. So all of this stuff is just to say you're in relationship with everything, not just your romantic partner. So when things aren't going well with whatever, you have to ask yourself, what kind of relationship do I have with that? Let's say your car keeps breaking down. Well, what kind of relationship do you have with your car? How do you treat your car? Do you regularly maintain it? Do you love it? Do you speak nicely of it? Do you have gratitude for it? Does it get a car wash every week? Does it get vacuumed every time it's dirty? Does it get cleaned out? Does its fluids get changed? Do you spend time with it? Do you drive it carefully? All of these things, even though that is supposedly a physical, inanimate object, it's really not. It has consciousness running through it. And that same consciousness is you. So if you can connect to that same consciousness that is you within that car, you can begin to have a relationship with that car. And in that relationship, you can know what that car needs. That car will tell you. That consciousness within that car is you. So you have a direct communication with it. So you can know, okay, it needs its oil changed. Oh, it has this issue. Oh, it wants to be washed. Oh, it sounds very silly, but each thing has its own consciousness. And I don't know the verse, but it just came to me right now. There is also something in the Bible that speaks to this, that even the rocks will speak, because there's truth in that. Even the rocks will speak, even a grain of sand, it doesn't matter. Everything has consciousness in it. And so you are in connection to that because that is you. And one of the easy ways you can start with, connecting and having relationship with everything is with the people around you. Start with those people around you, your romantic partner, your family. And if those people are difficult for you, if maybe you have a strained relationship with them, then you can also just start with things that are very neutral, like nature. You can connect with a tree, begin to spend time with a tree, begin to just put your hand on a tree, be around the tree. Eventually, things will begin to unfold for you that you may want to talk to the tree, you may want to touch it, you may want to water it. All of these things that are naturally occurring for you to want to do for that tree are actually the consciousness you're tapping into for that tree. So that tree is actually when all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I need to go water that tree, or actually it's time for me to go spend time with that tree. That's the consciousness of the tree, and you're tapping and connecting to it now because you're making a connection with that tree. You have maybe never connected with any of the trees in your yard. Pick one tree somewhere in your yard that you're going to spend time connecting with for the next month or year, however long you want to connect with this tree. Like I say, just place your attention on this tree. When you go outside, that's the tree you look at. That's the tree you mentally say hi to. That's the tree, whatever. But you will naturally begin to unfold and get these little communications of what you should do for that tree. All of a sudden, one day, it'll be that you need to trim that tree, or you want to rake the leaves around it, or trim it somehow and fix this or that. And so all of these things that are happening, you don't really realize them because they're always naturally happening, that we're getting information. But when we begin to focus our attention, we begin to notice that our consciousness is connecting to the consciousness of the tree. And in that, we are beginning to pay attention to its needs and be able to fulfill its needs. And in doing so, that tree continues to grow and flourish and grow beautifully, and that gives us joy. And the trees produce oxygen. There's many more things to this ecosystem that's happening. The tree is also nourishing us and keeping us alive this whole time. You see, we're not in separation from anything. My feet are on the ground. There is not a moment in this day that I am not touching or in connection to something other than myself. We cannot separate from anything. We're always in connection with others, with situations, anything that we're thinking about, even the things that we imagine. We have a connection, a prior connection to somewhere. And so all that's happening is we're just making connections with all that is already here and now. And all we have to do is connect with these things. And as we connect with them, the consciousness that it already has is now fluid and in connection with ours. It's not separate, it's always been connected. The only thing is we haven't been paying attention to it. So when we begin to pay attention to it, all that happens is this kind of flow where we now can give and receive with whatever it is, messages, information, whatever it happens to be, we have this connection. And so we can do this as well in our relationships. We can begin to connect with the consciousness of others. And in my other relationship videos, I've kind of talked about how when people begin to spend a lot of time together, they're romantically involved, they begin to kind of act like one another or even talk like one another and even use the same kind of mannerisms and things because they are now sharing the same fields and they have to kind of match each other in some way energetically and also within their fields. And that includes a lot of different things, preferences, who they are, things they've learned. And so this will kind of rub off, each one will rub off on each other. And so that's how that happens. And we're always in connection to each other. But when we get in better proximity and attention, all it takes is attention. Then we begin to share consciousness and information between each other. We don't realize when we're sitting next to our partner that our ways of being are being kind of shared and transferred into the other, but that is happening. They're mirroring us and we're mirroring them. And so in relationships, you're going to see a lot of conflict because what's happening is it's all good. It all seems good. Y'all are together. It seems stable. But underneath it all are things that have been brewing. And they're things emotionally that we haven't paid attention to. And they're happening within each person. And when two people get together, it's a safe space and it gives more energy now for these things to bubble up. And all they're going to do is bubble up, pop, and they're meant to release and let go. Because what your partner is a mirror for you, a mirror for you to see all of those areas where you're not aligned with your greatness, who you truly are, which is everything, which is just infinite and just it's never ending. What you are is eternal. Let's put it that way. And when you're not connecting with that, or you're not identifying or aligning with that, your partner or you are going to feel triggered. You're going to feel upset, like something is wrong. When your partner's not paying attention to you, all of these things, all of a sudden you get upset and very triggered. It is because you don't need your partner's attention. These things are there to trigger you into seeing that you are worthy. You never needed anything from anybody else. You are it. You are it all. And so they will trigger you in these ways, and it will seem very like it's not right, like, oh, I should maybe find someone else. But what you'll find is that everyone is going to do this to you. Every situation, relationship will trigger something in you until there's nothing to be triggered. When is it that there's nothing to be triggered? There's nothing to be triggered when you realize your true nature, which is absolute, which is everything, which again, like I say, is cannot be tainted, cannot be changed, is completely eternal and perfect. That part of you, when you tap into that part of you, it doesn't matter what someone says to you or doesn't say to you, does for you or doesn't do for you. You are stable and constant in who you are. Nothing can hold or grab at that anymore. Nothing can trigger that. But of course, that is a state that is very hard to maintain, and it's not a state that I know that anybody maintains. Even people that have had realizations and all kinds of things, they are not in that state at all times. They fluctuate from different states, and at times maybe they do go into that state, but other times they're not. It's just how the human works. But anyhow, at some point it will be realized enough that when these triggers come up, they really won't stick or hold very long. They may trigger something, but they're not going to stick or hold very long because they have nothing to hold to. There's no one there anymore. Whoever was there has completely surrendered and seen the truth of reality, that there is no one here and there is nothing to protect, no one to guard or to take serious or anything. There is just what is. And it's all just happening for us to just have fun. That's it, for no other reason. And so when that's realized, relationships become a little different. Relationships are just now happening to happen. And whenever they do trigger something in you, it's almost like a good surprise, like, oh, what's next? What am I going to learn by this trigger? What am I going to learn by this situation that has now bubbled up? Because of all these situations that bubble up and they seem very uncomfortable and very unpleasant, like, we didn't want this to come into our lives. Just want peace. Well, these things are there because they've been there. Maybe it is something from the past. Maybe it is something from even ancestors, who knows, that is now bubbling up and it wants to be released because it's not who you are. It needs to leave. And so it's actually a great thing to release things, for these triggers to come up and to release this, because you will realize that as soon as you get past this situation that has come into your life that is so unpleasant, when you release it, you're going to feel so amazing and you're going to see this huge sort of growth that will kind of happen from that. That's just the patterns that play out. Of course, this is just all a story, it's all here and now, but the way that things are shown to us, the way that things appear to us, the way that things sort of play out is in this way. We get triggered, these things happen, and all of a sudden there's this huge growth that happens. So these triggers, these things that happen, are not a bad thing at all. And relationships are just purely mirrors. They're just reflectors of what you are and what you have within that's, wanting to be expressed. It's triggering you to be more of you. That's all that's happening. Everything in life, no matter what it is, whether it's a romantic partner, a job, who knows, an animal, whatever it is that you get in contact with, it's all trying to just bring you back to unconditional love, which is yourself. So, on this journey of relationships, the best relationship advice that I could give you that no one ever talks about is you're just in relationship with yourself. So, you've heard many times from many therapists, many speakers, many people that we should love ourselves before we get in a relationship with anybody else. That we should love ourselves before we marry anybody else, before we want to be with anybody else. Why do they say this? Because it's so true. We really do need to love ourselves before we can extend that love to anybody else, because we are in relationship with ourselves. And if we're not loving ourselves, our partners are going to reflect all of these ways which we're not loving ourselves. And it's going to be very painful. And it's okay. It's okay that it's painful. It's okay that they're reflecting it, because all that's happening is they're trying to bring you back to who you truly are. So either way, whether we recognize and love ourselves before we get into that relationship, or whether we learn to love ourselves through that relationship, we are still going to be pointed back to us. So either way, we are safe. We are held. But what path would you want to take? Would you want to go ahead and get into a relationship for you to learn that within the relationship? And that's one way to do it. Or would you rather do it before? So it is up to the person, and sometimes, and the majority of times, it's not up to anybody, because the decisions happen so unconsciously. But if you're watching this video and you are in a relationship, well, you're in one, so you know that these triggers will come up and these things will happen. And these things are actually just meant for you. They're actually a good thing for you. And if you're not in a relationship, then this is a time to really think about these things. How can I love myself? How can I get to know who I am, get to my core, really get to know what reality is, get to know, the different aspects of myself. One way you can do that is just by simply just getting to know yourself, doing those things you love, following the ideas and passions that arise for you. Or you can do something like joining the unconditional course. I offer a course that is a 3-month course where we reorient you to your own heart. And in your own heart is already all of this information that I'm talking about. So if you can reorient to the heart and you can start living from your heart, you're already loving yourself in doing that. And in doing that, everything that's going to be reflected to you from your partner in romance and all these things are just going to be those things that you really want to see reflected to you. Because when we're loving ourselves, when we're in line with the still small voice within our heart, then we are in line with truth. And fear has no place in truth. And fear cannot survive in truth. And all of these things that we are so afraid of do not survive in truth. The dark cannot survive in the light. So, if you are interested in this course, I do have a course starting October 10th. I would love to have as many students as I can in this course. So email me if you feel called to do so. All you have to do is just email me at schoolofscarlet@gmail.com. I'll also have the information in the comment section. So being in relationship with yourself really just is about loving yourself. Really just is about honoring yourself. Um, Giving yourself grace in all moments. Life is not easy for most of us, and it can be very easy, but when we're not tapped in to our true selves, our heart, it can be very confusing. It can be very painful, because it's kind of like we're divided, just like the brain's divided. We're divided. And so one area wants this, one area wants that. So there's this internal struggle happening. The same thing happens within relationships. There is one partner that wants these things, there's one partner that wants those. If you really observe relationships, just watch some reality shows and things like that, you'll see that there's always one tugging one way, one tugging the other. And so these things are just happening this way, okay? Because there's this resistance so that there is change and there is growth. And that's just the way that things happen. There's nothing right or wrong about it. That's just how it happens. But essentially, all that's happening is that all that's happening is pointing back to you. That's all that's happening. So no matter what you get involved in, whether it's romantic relationships or any other kind of relationship or anything, all that's going to happen is you're going to be pointed back to you. So relationships are all about just loving yourself. And so that's my greatest relationship advice that nobody really ever talks about. You're only in relationship with yourself, and it's just all about loving yourself. When you can love yourself, others will love you like you can't believe. Everything will shift when you begin to love yourself. So thank you so much for watching today. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you are new here, Subscribe to my channel if you like these videos and you'd like to get more. Turn the notification bell on. Thank you so much for watching.